Hello, welcome back to another episode of Breadcrumb. This is a podcast about the clues left by success and failure, and I'm your host, Mary Galkowski. Today, we have a very special guest, someone who has truly made waves in the wellness industry, Julie Green, VP of Marketing of Massage Heights. Julie, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Julie, before we dive into a lot of the serious stuff, I want to bring up something that still makes me laugh so hard. So for those of you listening, I'm sure you already know what I'm going to say, but for those of you listening, Julie and I met at a bar in Atlanta called Johnny while we were at FCXC, which, by the way, great bar. But while we were there, we met specifically in line for the girls' bathroom. And we ended up having this whole bit about how the girls' room is such a special place. It's truly free therapy. It is a trauma bonding experience and so much more. It's honestly, it's like a if you know, you know type of thing. So, I mean, no matter what age you are too, like college, beyond, and I would say like especially nights out, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, even at a franchise conference.
So it was so funny because, and what I love so much is that we ended up like talking for probably an hour, like in that little corner. And some of my colleagues even came up like eventually and they were like, Mary, where have you been? I was like, right here, talking to Julie. Like, we have this amazing idea. We're going to have a podcast. This is going to be so exciting. We're going to talk all about the girls' bathroom. So it was just so funny. And I know we just went on and on. So I'm glad, now we're here today, finally actually on a podcast. So exciting. I loved that. I thought that was awesome. So anyway, I could probably talk about that for so long, but obviously, most importantly, I want to talk more about you.
Sure.
But Julie, I know you've been super instrumental in the growth of Massage Heights. Can you tell us a little bit more about your journey with the company and what initially drew you into the wellness industry?
Sure. So I've been in franchising, probably about 17 years now. And I feel like my story is a lot like others. I accidentally fell into franchising and then absolutely loved it and never wanted to get out. So I spent about 8 years in the home services industry, specifically in outdoor pest control, which was, if you can market pest control, then you can market pretty much anything, right? And then I spent about 3 to 4 years on the agency side, still in franchising, specifically working with franchisors. And I really missed being in-house in a brand at the franchisor level, and never thought I would say, I just missed working with franchisees. I missed that component of it. So I started looking, and in early 2023, I saw the job for Massage Heights. And so I initially came in as the director of marketing, and I focused specifically on consumer marketing. And I'll be totally honest, while wellness did catch my eye, I mean, you see massage and facial, you're like, ooh, I mean, I could do that. That sounds fun. It was the people that really drew me in, talking to the leadership. At the time, the CMO was Ashley Schutz, and that's what pulled me in. Russell Hoff is our chief operating officer. I met with our ops team, the full marketing team, and that more than anything drew me in. And I think that's also the story of a lot of franchise candidates when they're looking for different brands. A lot of times it's the people that draw them in. So, there was a kick-ass group of women who were doing awesome things at Massage Heights, and I was just happy to get on that train.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's so amazing. And how long have you been with Massage Heights then?
So I've been with the brand a little over a year and a half. So it was a year in February. So yeah, a little over a year and a half.
Oh, that's so great. And you love it?
So much.
Oh, so much. That's so great. So I know Massage Heights too has grown significantly underneath your leadership too. So what do you think has really been kind of like the key to that success?
Yes. Well, I attribute a lot of that to our founder and CEO, Shane Evans. Her leadership is just a direct result of her dynamic, energetic vision. And that's her whole approach, honestly. And she makes this incredibly fun and inspiring. I mentioned Russell earlier, the COO, the relationship I have with him. I get to take her vision and his, incredible business model, and I get to just run with that. And I get to be super creative. And my creativity is something that's nurtured really well, even at this point in my career, which is a really, really awesome thing to say. And that trifecta, I feel like, has allowed us to propel forward in the industry. There's a lot of really, really great alignment on our leadership team. Even in the past 3 to 6 months since I stepped into the leadership role, there's a lot of, I think people think wellness is a trend. And I think that they think, oh, just like a trend that it's passing. And we don't believe that. I think if you think back to 10 years ago, people weren't as invested in wellness and they weren't as invested in taking care of their skin or their body. And that's something that's really grown. And one of the things that we've been able to look at is how much that demographic has stretched and what age groups are really invested and focused on wellness. So that, coupled with, new service offerings, some really cool innovations that, we're testing and are coming soon. It's easy to be passionate about it when you have a team like that who is willing to try new things and be innovative and curious, super curious all the time. So I think the growth is there. And on the development side, it's really easy to feel that when candidates are meeting with our development team and then coming to meet the team. We all feel like this. And I think that's on the consumer side, wellness growth, but then on the development side, it's really easy to be passionate about for sure.
It's incredible. I completely agree. I mean, when that team synergy is there, that makes everything. That makes
it's unmatched. You feel unstoppable. It's just, especially when everyone's willing to have the transparency to just let's throw things out, let's talk it out. Russell's brain with the operations and logistics, and Shane's just always willing to try anything when it comes to ideas or processes. And that just allows me to, I just get to be creative and have fun ideas and the promotions and services. It's so fun.
Oh, I love that. I love having fun, creative freedom like that too, especially with leadership, and just because if you don't try it, you don't know. So why not just give it a shot, right?
Okay, great.
Totally. So kind of wanted to piggyback off of the leadership topics we were talking about too, and more on a personal note. Do you have a specific leadership philosophy that you like to follow?
Oh gosh, my leadership philosophy. Honestly, I'm a human being first. Mm-hmm. And I see my team the exact same way, or anyone that I work with. I always make the joke, I don't have a work personality. Mm-hmm. I am just me across the board. And I think that gets a lot of buy-in, both from leadership above me and my own team, right? To know that that's who I am. I was on a call, a video call, and it was a work call, but she's one of my very, very close friends now. And her mom was listening from the other room, and she came in and goes, "She's normal." And I was like, highest compliment of my entire life, professionally or personally, that I've ever received. But I think a lot of people tend to have trouble with this question about leadership philosophy because they have to think about it. Mm-hmm. What do I do? How do I treat my team? How do I approach this meeting? How do I approach, this problem? And that's just me. And I want my team to have that same safe space. I want them to know that they are going to be treated how I want to be treated, and they're going to be listened to because I want to be listened to. And that respect is very much a two-way street. I've worked places where I didn't have a voice, and where even if I was loud in the voice, it wasn't always, taken or respected, or whatever words you want to use there. And I think it's a lot like parenting, right? You take the good, you leave the bad. And I've done a lot of that in my career too. I've had incredible mentors, role models, and I've had some situations where I'm I really don't want to be like that. And so my vision for leadership is always, how can I help them get to that next place? How can I help them on their journey? And if they were here, they would probably joke that I'm always asking, what's your carrot? What's the next carrot? Because I'm very much, that's how I'm driven. What am I chasing? And that's how I approach our everyday life. And I communicate that really often. So I think it's a really long-winded way of saying we're all human beings. I tell them it's not if you make a mistake, it's when you make a mistake. We're all going to do it. And that's my job, is to be here to support you there just as much as I am when you're, hitting the numbers and making cool things happen with franchisees. So it's just a lot of respect and transparency and just being yourself and giving others the safe space to do the same.
I love that. Thank you for being so like open and honest about that answer too. That was lovely.
I told you, I am to me.
I mean, you're so cool, calm and collected, like a cucumber. I mean, truly, like you have such a calming presence. So
Thank you.
to you being like an incredible mentor. So I guess that kind of takes me to my next question too, which is how do you inspire and motivate your team, especially in challenging times?
So I think it goes back to that voice, that space for them to feel, and I'll back up and say, when I hire someone or when I'm, bringing someone onto the team, they are there for a reason. Mm-hmm. They have a strength that I saw, or they have a, skill set or a strength that it's my job, like I said before, to bring that out of them. And so coupled with making sure that at our table, that their seat, I'm not there to do anything other than draw that out of them. Mm-hmm. And to include that, like they are a step of every marketing process we have at Massage Heights. There's no part of it that they don't touch, specifically like promotions or whether it's national or at the local level. And so I always just try really hard to make them feel, it sounds a little cliche, but seen and heard, because I think even, especially when you're younger in your career, there can be situations where you have great ideas and you've been in a room where you didn't feel totally confident picking up or offering it up an idea. And I just remember being at those places in my career, and I look back at times, it's like, well, Julie, what do you think? And I'm like, 100% probably had no skin in the game to answer that question, but I was asked. And just that alone, I think is huge. And I give them so much credit. Like anytime I tell them all the time, anytime my name is on anything, like so much of their passion and work is woven into that, like so much of it. And so I think just the inspiration comes from, I think at a core level, wanting our franchisees to do really well, right? Like their success is our success at the end of the day. But then we all just genuinely really like each other. And so, it's like, you don't want to disappoint the people around you who who are really invested in this process with you. And so it just, to me, it always goes back to that. I treat them like they're humans. We all have lives. We all have personal lives. We all have professional lives, and they do amazing work. And I just try to let them know that as much as I can. And, we just have a lot of fun. So
I love that. And that's so important too. Like having fun is part of it as well,
Yeah. If you don't, it's like when you're recruiting someone and you're going through the interview process, it's always that question in the back of your head of, do I want to spend 40 hours a week with this person?
Yes.
Because they can be very good at a certain skill set or something or other. But these, and my team just happens to be all women. They are incredibly strong, funny, smart people that they do incredible work. And so I think just recognizing that and making sure that they know on any team, for anyone listening to this, making sure that your team knows how valued they are. Because I'm sure you've also been in situations where you've probably worked really hard and your work wasn't valued. And it's like, what did I do all that for?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. A culture fit too is, like you said, like that makes such a difference as well, and like I said earlier too, like just having that synergy is so important. And then being able to click right off the bat is a bonus, but being able to grow and expand and develop that relationship both personally and professionally is just, it's the best.
Well, and it goes back to, when I was talking about making mistakes, like they know that they, just like I've said to Shane before, like, I'm not going to sink a ship because I need help or I don't know, or I'm the first to admit either A, like, oh no, I think I screwed this up, or I don't know what I'm doing. What am I doing? Like, I need some help. And when you have that as someone professional, like where that you have a space where you can say, I screwed up. And the response is not, you kidding me? It's like, okay, well, what's going on? Let's get into it. Like, what's the solution? You know, it becomes a lot less of a, you know, there's a lot, relaxation feels like a weird word, but there is that kind of comfort. That's a word in knowing that the support's on both sides. And I think that alone, because I've been in a space where I haven't had that, which is very uninspiring, I think just being able to give them that, you know, I hope that they would say is super inspiring.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is so true. Like having that safe space, having that support system, it changes so much for sure. So Julie, what would you say success means to you?
Oh gosh, success. I mean, that's professionally, that's collaborative, right? That's the success of my team. That's the success of the franchisees. Because at the root of it, I said before, when our franchisees are successful, like that's what we're thinking of every minute of every day. How does this affect them? And what is the outcome for them? And what is the ROI and all of that? But success, you know, for me personally as a working mom, I have 2 boys. That's always a tricky question for me because that is being able to focus on my job when I need to focus on my job and being able to focus on my family when it's time to focus on my family. And I heard this very early in my career when I only had one. And, you know, it's a toddler. My husband was active duty in the Navy. He was gone all the time. And someone told me, you're always juggling balls, right? Some of them are glass, some of them are plastic. Just make sure you don't drop the glass ones. And those change all the time. So sometimes your glass balls are going to be your work, and sometimes those are going to be your family. And so work-life balance, I don't think that's like not a real thing for women. I think when people get asked that, it's like, well, work-life balance, that's not an easily, I'll say, achievable thing. And so success to me in that sense is, and it just goes back to that collaboration. Like I have that support to be able to turn off and say, I need to go be with my family. That allows the success of my work. Because I know that there are women who are in situations where they're trying to focus on family and work is coming in and you want to die. Like I'll just say, like you just want to absolutely die when you've got like a kid sick at home and the emails are flying in. And so I think that the success lies in that. I think it's knowing that there's not going to be there's not this like enlightenment moment where you're like, I have achieved work-life balance. I've made it. It's like, no, you just know that there are all of these things going on in the air. And it just goes back to like, what's the glass ball of today? You know, Monday, my youngest had to meet the teacher. So I knew that the glass ball for that morning was taking my 2nd grader in to meet his teacher. Nobody bothered me at work. I came back, I had a lot of calls, you know, and the glass balls shifted. And it just is this ebb and flow. And so I think particularly as women, giving ourselves the grace to know that those should change sometimes within an hour. That to me is the success of being able to kind of rise to a place in my career where I have. Now, granted, I very much know that is hugely dependent on your team and your support professionally. You know, I've talked about our leadership team here quite a bit already. Like they're amazing in that sense. But I think it's also advocating for yourself. But, you know, just to wrap that all in a nice little bubble, success to me is hugely collaborative. Yeah. It's so collaborative. There's like, you'll never find me feeling like I've achieved something without there's like I said earlier, there's just so many people like woven into that, which is franchising. Like, I think that's one of the reasons we all are in this industry. It's hugely collaborative, and it's sharing these ideas like you and I are doing today. And I think being willing to share that, and then being willing to take in that feedback of places where success could look a little different, you know, it might not be what you had in your brain, but just a crazy ride, you know?
It is a crazy ride. And I love that analogy so much of the glass ball and the plastic ball. That's going to resonate with me. Like I
couldn't tell you who told me.
Yeah.
I don't remember where I was, but it has never, ever left my brain. And to the point that sometimes when I'm looking at my calendar or something, I'm like, what are your glass balls today? What's plastic? What can we shift out of the way? Because there's just like and my husband is amazing and does just as much with the kids in the house and all of this, but it's still that kind of act of, what are you tackling today? And what am I tackling today? And what ball can I throw to you? Yeah. It's the same thing with my team. We have a lot going on right now, and just being able to go to them and say, like, I need to put this on your plate and I can't think about it. They're like, nope, got it. Like, at what point do you want us to loop you back in? Building that dynamic, I think, is how you become successful. It's like surrounding yourself with people that that you have the ability to do that, and just focus on the glass, right? Because what happens when a glass ball shatters.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so inspiring. I love that so much. All right, so now kind of getting a little bit deeper, we talked about success. So now the next question I have is, what does failure look like to you? And how have you applied, I guess, both of these learnings of success and failure in your career and growing from them?
So failure to me is just not meeting an expectation that you've set for yourself. Mm-hmm. That's what failure is to me. It is also not learning from something. It's a strong word, and I think people have this very negative connotation with failure, but I see them, more stepping stones. Mm-hmm. And we've all had those moments that we look back where I sent an email to over 300,000 people with a typo in it, and I will never forget that as long as I live, and what that sinking feeling in my stomach was when it went out. Like, you have those, but you look back in the scheme of, your career, even your life. And I think it's your ability to own the failure is where I find a lot of people get into trouble, and that's where they become negative.
Yes.
Whereas, I've had someone tell me before, like, you're a very self-aware person. Like, you were very willing to say, I screwed up. I'm like, well, what is the alternative there?
Yeah. Right.
What are we doing if I'm not saying, I screwed up? But it's a chance to kind of take that step back, because I do find a lot of times, for me personally, the failures or, the setbacks come from when I didn't originally take that step back and go, okay, like, what is the goal here? What are we trying to accomplish? And how can we move this needle forward? I apply that in my life all the time, whether it's work or my life or my kids. It's just being willing to say, like, hey, that didn't go how I wanted it to.
Yeah. And
how can we make sure that it doesn't create this like chain of events? Because that's where I find it comes in when, you're not willing to do that. And I think that it goes back to how you were asking about, transparency and leadership and all of that. Like, modeling that is also like hugely empowering. I think when people are, I was on a leadership call today, and Shane, our CEO, stepped back in February after she had been out for, 2 years, and we were working through this issue, and, she kind of stopped, and we stopped, and she's like, well, that's the narrative though, right? Like, we tried it didn't work, and here's what we're doing. And I'm like, yeah, it's just like that simple. Like, it's that simple. And whether it's a franchise system, it's a team, like, that's a really powerful thing to be able to have that culture of transparency, and that's allowing those failures to move you forward rather than letting them push you back. And that just comes from, okay, like, what went wrong here? Like, what do we do? Like, there's kind of that assessment of it. And on the, I look back in my career and my successes and failures, and it's just the times that I can think back to mistakes or, things that you would call failures are some of the greatest lessons that I took from anything. And I don't think you've really failed. I don't think it's a true failure if you don't if you're taking a lesson from it. It's not a failure, that's what I'm saying. And just creating, I think a lot of times in a work culture, people think that like everything has to be perfect and we all have to be doing X, Y, Z. No. And it's like, again, we're all just people doing the best that we can. And, just making sure that everyone around you knows that. Like, if we're learning lessons here and we're not repeating the mistakes, it's not a failure to me. It's just a learning opportunity.
Absolutely. I think that's so true. And definitely resonates with myself as well.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. So, as someone who has been in the franchise industry for a while, what trends do you see, Julie, emerging in wellness that you're excited about?
Gosh, there are a lot of trends in wellness. I mean, you look at skin talk, which you had told me that was a thing 5 years ago. I probably would have laughed at you. But I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think that is the trend, is that people are so much more invested in their skincare, and especially at a younger age. But I think massage used to be something that one would do when they wanted to relax or they just wanted a minute. And I think they're now shifting into this space that we've known that this is a part of a total wellness journey that, the benefits to your body, no matter what you're doing, if you're an elite athlete or if you're like me, you're just a working mom, like the health benefits, migraines, blood pressure, all of that, stress levels, obviously. But there's a lot more emphasis being placed on that. And I think that's why you'll start to see in, the coming months, maybe even years, there's going to be a lot of services that revolve around just extending that wellness journey. And you can see it now, even, with cryo and stretch and like salt therapy. There are a lot of wellness. Trend feels like way too light for what I think they are, because I think that's just where wellness is going. It's people are much more willing to invest their disposable income into their bodies, because I have a 14-year-old niece who has a better skincare routine than I do. I mean, it's incredible. And I love that for her, because she's not going to be dealing with the same skin issues that I do at almost 40, because she has taken such great care of her skin. And I we partnered with some NIL athletes over the past couple of months, and I'm just so in awe of them and how in tune they are with their bodies. But what that tells me is the customer journey for the wellness industry just got so much longer. Mm-hmm. So much longer. And there's such an opportunity there for much more brand loyalty, because if you're capturing a demographic between the ages of 14 to 20, when we thought we were going 28 to 35, like you think about how much more opportunity you have to make someone a brand, loyalist for life. I feel like everybody says this, it's so corny, but there truly has never really been a better time to be in the wellness industry, right? Like with everything that's going on, it's so cool. And massage therapists and estheticians are just incredible at being able to come to our table, and say like, hey, here's what our clients are wanting here. Like, they're just as much in this process. It's really cool to see how I love when you can stretch outside of the comfort zones of a demographic. I love it so much, because I get to be creative now. It's like, how do we capture an audience here? But it's moving, and it's moving so quickly, but I truly don't think that it's a trend. I think skincare and body care is something that is incredibly important for a human body in general, but mental health is a huge aspect of that too. And I mean, lucky for us, it just gives us a lot of opportunity, but it's so fun, like, to just look at you look on social media and influencers and all of that. It's just grown so much, and it's really cool to see.
It is really cool to see. I love that. So with that too, with Massage Heights, what's next for you with Massage Heights?
Well, I just spoke about it a lot. We're kind of going back to the drawing board with demographics and looking at how we can capture, that younger audience, not necessarily from a, membership model, but how do we get that education piece out there? Because that's the goal, is that education piece of your skin and your body. And I can't give away too many secrets, but we are testing quite a few innovations. There's some really cool things coming next year for the brand. I mentioned we've been partnering with NIL athletes, which we've never done before, which has been so much fun. And just starting to kind of stretch outside a little bit and see, you know, how far we can take those wings of who we can bring into the brand. And on the development side, we've had, I mean, Shane coming back in, I talked about her vision, unmatched. We've had an incredible year, probably going to surpass our franchise development goals. So we've got some incredible new franchisees coming in that I know are just going to breathe some awesome life into these communities with wellness. And yeah, just, you know, continuing to get that education out there of wellness and what it can do in local, you know, communities, not just our own, but, you know, think about all the people in your life who like mental health or, you know, body struggles or skin struggles. So I don't think that we've scratched the surface of what we're ready to do.
Wow. Well, if it's just starting, that's so exciting. And it seems like an incredibly exciting year ahead too. I'm so excited for you guys.
Thanks. We're excited.
Awesome. Good. And then on a more personal question too, Julie. So in addition to being a rock star VP of marketing and an amazing mom to 2 boys, what other things do you love to do? What are your hobbies and your passions?
Oh gosh, I'm a huge book nerd. I barely ever watch TV. I'm the worst person when someone says, "Oh, have you seen insert show?" I'm like, no. I think I've already read like 60 something books this year.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
I always have one in my bag. You can genuinely find me on a football field most afternoons or weekends. We have a flag football player and we have a football player, a 12-year-old plays football. You find you have kids and they get older and their social lives are so much more involved than yours. So yeah, we're also big beach people. We live in North Carolina, so we're 3 hours from the beach, 3 hours from the mountains. But it's usually I'm on a field with a book somewhere.
I love that.
And a glass of wine when I can, but
of course, as you deserve. Where in North Carolina are you?
I live in Raleigh, North Carolina.
That's awesome. I always grew up going, and we actually went last year too, but with my mom's side of the family, we would always go to the Outer Banks.
Oh, it's so funny. My husband and I's anniversary is next month, and we're going to Duck in the Outer Banks.
Duck. Oh my gosh. Oh, Duck Donuts are there, which are now like everywhere.
I know, but still, it's the original. It's the original.
Duck is seriously, that was like one of the cutest towns I had ever seen. I think we were driving to the airport and stopped in Duck, and it was amazing.
When you blink, you miss it. It's very
small. So it's so cute. And I just remember this like awesome little fruit stand, and we got we got lunch there and just shopped. It was adorable. It was so cute.
Our lab's name is Bodie, which is the Bodie Island Lighthouse in the Outer Banks. So if you can't tell, it's like a very special place to us too.
I love that. That's amazing.
Guys, he didn't make an appearance today.
Oh my gosh, that's such a cute name. I love that. I love the Outer Banks, and I love North Carolina so much. And that's so nice. You're by the mountains too. And the beach, you have like the best of both worlds around you.
We do. And we usually get all 4 seasons. So it's a good place.
That is so great. And you said, I had to ask you this too. I know you mentioned that you're a big bookworm. So I was in a book club, I think it was like a couple years ago, but just a book that like I keep thinking about is 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
I loved that book so much.
I am waiting so patiently for the movie to come out. I think they casted most of the cast already for it, but
have you read her other books?
No, not yet, but I need to.
You should. I loved that book. It's very hard to get a 5-star out of me on Goodreads.
Yeah.
5-star. I loved that book.
So good. Well, who's the Lexi Jenkins?
Or Jenkins Reid, yeah.
Yes, yeah, I need to read her other books because that was phenomenal.
Yeah, Malibu Rising, Carrie Soto is back. Like, they're so good. But that one was probably my favorite of all of her books.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Okay, definitely need to check out her other ones. And then did you see the new Blake Lively's movie that just came out too? What was that book?
Marketing team and I just had the most intense discussion about this. I have not seen it yet, but I've read the book.
Okay.
And they gave very mixed reviews. Have you seen it?
I haven't, but I also have heard mixed reviews.
I was going to say I won't spoil it because one of them saw it and had read the book. One of them saw it and had not, which I'm like, how would you ever go see a movie without reading the book first? But yeah, mixed reviews. So I don't know. I love Blake Lively though.
Me too, so much. And Ryan Reynolds, they're just a power couple.
Right.
They're the best. All right, well, I would love to keep talking. I know we're kind of wrapping up on time here, but I hope you have an amazing, awesome Labor Day weekend. And thank you so much for joining. This has been just so inspirational. You're amazing. So thank you so much.
I appreciate you having me. This was wonderful.
We're so excited for the future of you and for the future of Massage Heights. So to our listeners as well, stay tuned for more inspiring conversations. And thanks for listening to Breadcrumb.